Hello and welcome back to Movie Buffs, a show that, despite being dead for a year, is now very much alive. I'm your host, Shani V.
And I'm your other host, Cisco from Misfit Minded Media Reviews. Feels good to be back from the dead, Shani B, after a year. Just real quick, how's the last year been? It's been a minute. How's mom life? What have you been up to?
Doing all the good stuff, just out here being a grown up about it and nurturing the development of the next gen, making sure, all of the essential viewing is taking place nice and early and against probably most doctors' orders for screen time. But,
Mm.
this is my kid, so I'll
It's
do
a
what I
future movie
want.
buff. We gotta like nurture the future of generations of movie buffs. Like,
That's very important to me, absolutely. But yeah, been just working, living, trying to watch as many movies as I can when I have some time, and loving what's been going on in the conversation and excited to be back.
well, that's what I was gonna
Um,
ask. Is like, has it like impacted like your usual? I know you used to be like heavy on the new releases. Like, how has that been going?
Still keeping up with the conversation, doing our best to kind of like get lean on some childcare so we can stay as up as possible. And I am like absolutely that first person that's like, what day is it on streaming? Because in the middle of the night when I'm like on a shift, I'm gonna
Mm,
go ahead and watch it.
yeah.
I want to stay involved. Schedule definitely changes, but still doing what I can to get those movies in there. And certainly, not going to see like the third and fourth build movie that I definitely would have seen
Yeah.
historically.
And me and you like famously love the movie in the background, like always. So
Yep.
I know that's still happening. And then, okay, real quick, last question. What was like the last good movie or show you can recommend for buffs that have been missing our opinions on stuff?
I just sort of happened upon the Jack Quaid movie Companion.
I still have to see
Probably,
that.
I was gonna say like a few months back. Let's see,
Hmm.
I can't remember exactly when I watched it, but it was like before grotesque images started to like move away because I was like, she's probably looking at the TV now. I really have to not watch something that has too much violence in it.
Right.
But it was so much better than like I thought it would be.
Mm,
And it's a good watch for sort of like, that idea of loneliness and creating the perfect partner or, creating something that will be what we want it to be, and how that's just like not really a thing. So it's the last good movie I can think of, but it really fits into the conversation we'll have
good
today as
pull, because that
well.
was like early in the year too. So
It
like
was
I'm
good.
glad. Okay,
Yeah.
you're like pushing me. I gotta check that one out now.
HBO Max. It's still there, I believe.
I will jump on your HBO Max recommendation, and I will say the last great thing I have seen was Task on HBO. I highly, highly recommend, especially the movie buffs that liked us for the action piece, which we'll get into here in a second. It was very reminiscent of Heat. Mark
Mm,
Ruffalo is the cop. Um, Pelfrey from Tom Pelfrey. He was in Ozark. He's
uh-huh.
great. He's the robber, so it's like that's the dynamic,
That's
and
right.
it's so much deeper than that though. Like I'm not selling it very well. It's in Philly.
Oh,
Same guy that
so
did
there's like a
Mayor of
lot of Philly
Easttown.
accents going on, or what?
Yes, but they're all so great. It's crazy, and the whole cast is like British. Like if you watch the behind the scenes, they're like British and Irish. It's not fair.
They're
It's,
holding it down
I
for
know.
quality actors, those British folks.
And
We're really
Ruffalo,
stuck
it
in
might
social
be,
media influencing, and they've got some real capital A actors.
Ruffalo's like best performance, which is like high praise. Like he's been in so much.
Every single
I
performance of his
know.
is better than the last one. Like, he's a god.
I remember like it had so much hype. Even like I'm always nervous leading into the last episode. I'm like, are they gonna fully live up to the expectations they set up? And dude, like the last episode left me just devastated. Like and if they don't, I don't know if they're gonna do another season or not. But I'm like, I'm fine if they just keep it a mini series and just leave it because it was so perfect how it was. So that's
Right,
my rec.
totally. Yeah, yeah. I am definitely curious about it, but I was snake bitten because of like how True Detective had always been hyped in a similar way, but like sometimes couldn't really hold that hype.
Yeah,
But I was curious about it.
Bill Simmons said it was better than True Detective season one, like early in the show's running, and it's not
What?
that good. I'm
It,
gonna pump the brakes on that right now. It is not that like, but it's very good. It is very
okay,
well made.
okay.
It's one of the best shows I've seen in a long time.
I
Uh,
mean, more a testament to like we're hungry for this kind of good show, and not since maybe season one have we had something like so legit.
yeah, exactly. So, but at the action piece to speak to that before we get into our regular scheduled programming here, I just wanted to say at the top, this is Movie Bluffs 2.0. We're coming back. I know it's been a while, and I just don't want to confuse you guys, but this is what's going to be moving forward. So we will cover action movies here and there, but that's not going to be like our main thing anymore. It's going to be all genres. We're opening up the floodgates, as Mark Maron would say. We're opening the gate. Uh, so still gonna be sort of the same though with like on the anniversary of classics, we'll still do that. New releases that come out like today's episode, we're gonna do throw those in there, and so same kind of categories. We're gonna still do those. It's just gonna be more content, more what I mean, more topics of discussion. So don't be alarmed with different audio cues, different things like that. It's gonna be same old movie buffs stuff that you know and love. Same release schedule, podcast, video. But yeah, that's the only difference. We're just expanding things. Still going to be the same passionate discussions, debates, conversations, and we love film. We're movie buffs, and that's why we decided to go in this direction. So we hope you guys will join us on this ride. And now that we got that out of the way, you want to take us in, Shani B?
Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah,
Here we
exactly.
go. Yes, so today we are talking about the brand new film opening this week from Netflix, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. And I have the trailer here for us to get reversed in the film. So let's watch that.
And
If you haven't seen it, it is the newest rendition of the infamous tale of Dr. Frankenstein, the brilliant and/or psychotic mad scientist who aims to cheat death and create life only to ultimately be destroyed by it. To get the boulder rolling, let's set the scene. As we mentioned, this is a Netflix production and it was limited released in theaters, probably for some Oscar action, on
mm-hmm.
October 23rd and started streaming November 7th. So, last week we were able to catch it. The budget is approximately 120 million and, at the box office, not exactly earning that back with the limited release, looking like 423K is all we're coming home with.
Yeah.
But I guess in the first couple of days streaming, there were 21.9 million viewers. So people are still interested and watching it, which brings us to our first segment called The Moving Parts.
In this segment, we'll take a close-up look at the filmmaking choices that went into the film and the auteurs responsible for them. This movie was written and directed by Guillermo del Toro, like we said. He is the Academy Award-winning director behind Hellboy, which we covered previously. Go check that out. I love that episode. We also covered, or we haven't covered, but he's the Best Picture winner, Shape of Water. You might have heard of that one. So very long career since the 90s. He's been, making movies. And so I kind of want to start there. Like, what's your relationship with GDT? Like, you know what I mean? Are you a Fanny B?
This is interesting, and
Okay.
gonna be pretty fun. I am a fanny bee of the artist and the filmmaker and some of the details,
Mm-hmm.
but he is not really my guy when it comes to the library. I've got favorites I really like that he's made, but like, even though I appreciate him as an artist, I'm not like always rewatching his films first. There's just like a little too much, maybe like fantasy or something in there for me, which I like, but is not like ultimately my favorite world to
Mm,
always be in, if that makes sense. So I feel like
it
if I know
does.
he's done it, I'm gonna check it out. It's like he
Yeah.
will always come with some of these details that are stellar, and like even if the movie's not good, there are pieces of his filmmaking that are always pristine, but he's not exactly like he doesn't nail it for me every time.
Yeah.
So I hope that's not too
No,
controversial.
to hop on that, I kind of agree. Like I'm kind of more of a fan of his like earlier work, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
especially like his original work, which that'll be a discussion, I think, when we talk more of the details of Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think he's a visually just compelling artist always. Like you said, like his building is like next to none. Like he just takes you into this fantasy world every single time. They're always different. He's drawing, and like if you've seen pictures of his house, like this guy lives in his own imagination, and I love artists that do that and can bring us in, because
Mm-hmm.
that's so rare nowadays, and especially like with AI and stuff like that, like it's getting lost. I mean, I even watched like the behind the scenes of Frankenstein, and Oscar Isaac said this might be one of the last kinds of this type of movie, like with how much practical stuff that they did. And that's what I like about him. That's what I think as a director he brings to the table every time. But like you said, the rewatchability factor is not as much there, you know, and like you really have to be in the right mood, I think, and like mindset to go. It's not really necessarily the ones you want to rewatch. And he's kind of in his blank check era right now after
Mm,
winning Shape of Water, which is like we talked about before, kind of a dangerous time depending on the artist. You know what I mean? Because when you
totally.
don't have anybody pushing back on you and you just have unlimited budget and unlimited resources, sometimes that's not the best thing. And he's been obsessing about making Frankenstein since he was a kid, like for
Oh,
40 years. And so we finally have this adaptation, and it's going to be really interesting conversation. So the next thing before we get into the actual details of here, I want to also get that perspective from you. What's your relationship with Frankenstein? Because like this is one of the oldest stories,
it's
like
true.
popular stories that people recognize in terms of like IP, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's people don't really think of it like that, but even like early cinema, Frankenstein was one of the earliest, you know, creatures like or just creations put on film that
Hmm.
people of the day would recognize because of the story. So yeah, what's your relationship with like any of the adaptations, the original book itself? Like, I don't know, I'm kind of curious about that too.
I mean, I have kind of a loose relationship with it because I know people who are really into it. And so I've had a lot of people kind of like share their perspective on the story and like why they do or do not like it. But it's sort of like right in that space of like, I only watched it to be like, I've got to see these things. I wasn't necessarily like always connecting to the emotional through line that is happening in the historical Frankensteins.
Hmm.
However, you know, as a buff today, having done a little bit more homework and been more present for some things, I am paying so much more attention to that in movies. So a part of me was like, I need to go back and like rewatch some of these after seeing this adaptation. That had such a powerful emotional through line that was like very clearly defined and like purposeful and prioritized. And I have to imagine so too were the others just like in their own way. So I feel like, I'm not so tight to this property either, which gave me a lot of space to sort of watch this movie from a couple vantage points. Just like the story unfolds, but also like, as both a fan and as like a kind of critical eye person, and then just as like someone in culture who has a cultural relationship to this material, even if I haven't seen it.
Hmm.
Um, what about you? Yeah, like what is your relationship to the original Dark Universe?
I love how you put it like that. Yeah, we've talked about the dark universe before too, as which is why I'm laughing. But yeah, kind of largely the same. You know, I read the book in high school, and that was like ages ago. So it's not like I have a, you know, really deep relationship to the text. And that's what I think kind of makes this one interesting, is because usually they're remaking stuff that came out now like 20 years ago and stuff like that. And this is
Right.
the original text is from 1818. Most people, their relationship with it might be like the Universal monster, you know, Frankenstein, or just some of the later adaptations of it, than anything. Like Robert De Niro played Frankenstein. I know that one.
I mean,
And
that's the crazy thing about these really old properties is like how many iterations get
so
done and
many.
how obsessive people can be about making them because I didn't realize GDT was like so into this property, across his life. So it's kind of amazing to, when you find a person that like is really attached to something and that like it is something people want to keep telling the story of.
It's just yeah, it's like it reminds me a lot of the Nosferatu thing, because that was kind of a very similar story, where also
Totally.
based on a text previously, also one of the earliest cinematic masterpieces of the day. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
another and it got turned into a Universal monster, and you know, so it's very similar in like that lineage. And I think when you think of Guillermo del Toro's filmography, it does make sense that like he's basically made Frankenstein or themes of Frankenstein in every single one of his
Totally.
movies, including his last, I think it was Pinocchio was his last one, which is
Right.
also a creator making some like another life. You know what I mean? So he's been obsessed with. He wanted to make Pinocchio his whole life, he said, and Frankenstein his whole life, and those have
Hmm.
been his Netflix blank
Nailed
check
it.
movies.
He fully
So,
nailed it.
so
What do you
mission
do when
accomplished, I
your
guess.
dreams have come true? Right, totally, totally. I guess you start telling nightmare stories or something. Yeah, I guess I'm curious about that too. I was thinking, like how many of his films are like truly box office success rather than like I feel like he has diehard like fans and supporters.
Hmm.
Like people that are gonna like keep his, definitely be spreading the space of the stories he's telling and like having conversations. But like, do his films really make like big money at the box office? I know probably like Pacific Rim, right,
I was
has to
gonna
be
say
like
the
the
the big
massive
ones:
earner for him.
Pacific Rim, Hellboy. Like
But
those.
like, did Hellboy do well? I can't even.
It
I
got
needed
enough
to
for a
re-listen
sequel.
to our.
Usually, that's a pretty big sign that they did well.
That's
Um,
true. That's true.
but yeah, it's interesting, and I guess just to get into general thoughts, now like similar to the Robert Eggers Nosferatu, I kind of had the same issues here, which sucks to say, but like I've been wrestling with it ever since I saw it, and I kind of watched it again before this. I was going through it, and I just think it can be like a bad thing, like we said, when you're so obsessed with a property and you're thinking of it your whole life, like he said, since he was like, I think he said like 11 years old or something like that, when he
Mm,
first saw the original like Frankenstein, black and white Boris Karloff Frankenstein,
so
uh
good.
that you can kind of squeeze the life out of something. Like you can, you know what I mean? Like you're not.
Totally.
And from I watched the behind the scenes thing on Netflix too, and it did sound like a very collaborative effort, which we'll talk about between the different departments. But there
Mm,
was a piece of me that kind of I flagged in that, where he was like, "I'm a pest. I am always checking in with every single department to make sure that we're always on the same
that's
page."
so
And
good,
it
though.
is good though. It is good, but I think it's gonna be hard to articulate, but I think
Yeah,
there's
like
there
inserting yourself a little too much sometimes by accident, even if you have, what could be positive collaborative
or
relationship.
having a priority on aesthetic rather than the story, which I
Mm,
think maybe he's saying, "Oh, I don't want to mess with the story. I hold it so close to me."
so
He made
I.
some changes here and there, which we can talk about, but like
Mm-hmm.
when you hold something like that, you might be scared to take risks with it, and or the risks that you do take, maybe not the ones that serve the story necessarily well. And
Yeah,
I felt that way with Nosferatu too. Like I thought, again, visually stunning, performances great in that across the board, but like it also left me kind of, we already have as good as
yes,
we need for this story.
right.
And I kind of prefer people doing their own random iterations on it rather than this
Same.
type of, like, I just watched Frankenhooker for the first time, and like that is a
Perfect.
wild, a sex worker gets turned into a Frankenstein monster out
Ooh,
of sex worker parts, and it's fun, it's hilarious, and I just had a much better time watching. Is that, I'm
yeah.
not saying it might not be the better movie, but like that's more of what I am interested in. You know what I
I
mean?
think that's definitely what I'm taking away from this too. And I agree, I feel this way about Nosferatu as well, is that like I wasn't really sure why we needed the remakes at this time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe Frankenstein's a little closer because we truly do have like a loneliness kind of epidemic, like, and people really sort of wanting things their way only and wanting things to be very one-sided. So I feel like there's like something there.
Well, and there's a
But
pandemic in there, which I thought like, wow, that he can maybe tie in. That's a very timely story after having lived through that. And it really wasn't a huge part of the remake. You know what I mean? Like, so
mhm,
again, it's not what you have to ask yourself, why are you making it? What are you bringing to, what is
yes.
it saying about right now, like here and now in our world? You know what I
That's
mean? And
why I was wondering, like what even is the business decision behind either of these two movies? Because it does sort of feel like the studio has said to both of these guys, like, we just need like a quality entry for these titles because we're gonna keep remaking
well,
them.
it's a blank check.
So,
Ted Sarandos literally said, "What do you want to make?" to Guillermo del Toro, and he said Frankenstein. And
and they weren't like, "Are you sure?"
hmm And I had the same
But
issue
he
with
would have been
Pinocchio as
sure.
well, which I'm like, I don't need another Pinocchio movie. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like I've outgrown that story. It's been done to death. And like, his I
And
like
there's
that
no
he's
way he doesn't have an original idea because to
mhm.
your point, he's always drawing and imagining. So it has to be that, like, if we put our producer hat on, it's that thing of like, what do you want to make that's in our library?
And I prefer his originals, just like Robert Eggers. Like
A
Robert Eggers'
million
new one is
percent.
werewolf, so he's staying in this kind of creature realm. But like, I think it's an original screenplay, and that has me excited, more excited than I would have been if it was like I'm adapting whatever is the most popular werewolf story or
Right.
whatever.
I mean,
Uh,
did you see Lee Wannell's Wolfman
I didn't, but I
with Julia
did. I
Garner?
did love his
Um,
Invisible Man take, and
okay.
that I think is what we're saying is like he took that through the lens of domestic abuse, and which is a
Mm,
even though a problem that yes that should be addressed, and it I need something that like you can look deeper than just a monster story, I guess is what I'm saying. And there's definitely
yes.
themes like daddy issues, like we'll talk about, which are in
Mm-hmm.
here. But overall, he's been doing this story again and again. He did it in Shape of Water, which I thought was better. He did it in
Yeah.
Crimson Peak, which I thought was better.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's just like it's
It is curious
Guillermo
to
del
me that
Toro
he,
light.
yeah,
Like
it is. It is. But it's really interesting that he is interested in a similar kind of story. Because to your point, I do feel like most of his films have a kind of like parent-child centered story. Whether he like
always.
writes those stories or directs them. Because I do feel like even in the films he just like contributes the screenplay towards, that is like still very prevalent in the story he wants to tell. And I think that is interesting because I feel like when you have to try to tell your stories within someone else's property, that's where you have like a great opportunity, like, in the Lee Wannell adaptation of Invisible Man, but
Mhm.
you also still have like a huge undertaking. Because the reason I brought up his Wolfman is he tried so hard to do the same thing. And there are a couple ways he succeeded, but there were like other ways that he couldn't do keep both. He really struggled in a way that like I was so bummed when I saw
One, and
Wolfman because I was like, oh, I want it so bad.
that's the great difficulty with taking on any property is like how do you
Mm-hmm.
do it a fresh take without doing the original thing over again, which that's not really a concern for most people because they don't even remember the original source of Frankenstein anyway, but
Exactly.
you still have to what we're saying put a fresh take on it to make it pop because a lot of this I will say felt like characters that I had no really connection to, um and the one that I did the most was the creature,
Mm,
and Guillermo del Toro has a soft spot for creatures, and I think that might have hurt the story as well, where it's supposed to be this dual story of Victor's tale and the creature's tale,
mm-hmm.
and he is putting the creature's tale on a pedestal,
A little bit.
and
Yeah,
so
Victor
it
is
kind of
so immediately monstrous,
unlikable,
right?
and it takes the bite out of the creature because I never really saw him as a monster ever.
Right.
Even though they have like the opening scene is him attacking the ships and stuff like that, the workers on the ship. But you don't ever he doesn't attack animals ever. He doesn't.
Nope.
It's like there's no monstrous really bone in his body.
Well,
Like
it's that thing of like, I think he, as a director, is always trying to say that like monsters are actually misunderstood, right? Like
mm-hmm,
they're most often acting out of survival and then misinterpreted, which we even get to witness happen with the monster and his relationship to the older man. We get to see that same kind of idea of like, oh, we think you're a monster. So even though you didn't do it, it's very easy for us to assume you're monstrous. And I think you're totally nailing it that like because he's so preoccupied with like making sure that we have empathy for the monsters and stories and trying to like reframe how we see them, that did imbalance it and make it like impossible to try to understand why Victor was so monstrous.
yeah,
He
it was
did a
mostly
great
like
job of explaining the monster being like, well, he was abused, so he's got a streak of this because of the abuse he
it
endured.
was mostly Victor doing the violence and then blaming it on the creature, like
Yeah,
every time. You know what I mean?
everybody just being like, it was him again.
Yeah.
I can't believe he
Which I
kept
thought was
doing
like
that.
pretty sloppy storytelling too, where
I
it just
mean,
happened. And even in the original Frankenstein, he kills that little girl. It's one of the most famous scenes from that
mm,
movie. And, it's
mm-hmm,
like you can still empathize with the monster for doing something that he didn't necessarily intend to do. Like
totally.
he didn't ask to be created. You know what I mean? He's not human. So those are the themes of the story. Like
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
really disrespecting the source material by doing that. I don't think.
No, and you're so easily able to connect to the idea that like this is about generational trauma, right? This is about
Yeah.
parents and children, whether the parents are, biological parents or I guess like maybe we can consider this an adoptive parent situation because ultimately he is willing to use the terminology son at the very end.
Well, and then
Um,
from the very beginning, I don't know if a lot of people caught that. The first word I think, or one of the first scenes he has with them is he says sun, even though he's talking about the sunlight, but he says
mhm.
sun, and then he says sun is life. And it was, yeah.
Mm. And it
So,
is, right?
yeah.
Um, lots of allegory going
Hmm.
on. But yeah, I think like the way the story unfolded is like a main part of the filmmaking that I was like both sort of like okay, but also kind of tripped over because I agree. I don't love that it was so disjointed in the sense that like it really felt like three separate movies. But the
Hmm.
third movie was like really light, and I'm sort of like, why does this ship captain matter? Why does he need to hear this
I
story?
was
What
just going to,
is
okay,
this
let's
about?
get into the filmmaking choices because I want to get there because
Yes.
I agree. I think that also did a disservice to the storytelling because it moves like there's a pace to it. It
Hmm.
doesn't feel like necessarily like slow, but it just there's like a dull quality to it. To like you're saying, where do we need those? Who are those people on the ship? I don't know. Like, do we need them telling? I know that's in the book or whatever, but like
Mm.
you don't need that
Okay.
for a film adaptation. I don't think it felt very TV to me. Like put the action scene at the beginning
Yep.
and then we're going to tell you what really happened and then go back to that scene that you saw at the beginning. And it's like we didn't really need that structure. We could have just seen the events play out,
Hmm.
maybe got more character development as a result of that. And so I brushed up on that as well,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I
storytelling
guess that's
device.
exactly it is, to your point of the idea of if you're going to take a property and try to like reinvigorate it, look at the pieces that the folks who didn't read the novel need to connect to this. So I think that's the one of the hard parts too is that like you're adapting something, but you're also trying to adapt it in a way that a viewer who doesn't have the source material could still connect. And I think that's why movies are my favorite is that they find a way to be like the person who needs to hear the story is this person. And that's why we get to tell them this story. And maybe that's in the book in a way and easier to digest that way, but it did not translate for me not having like the on hand the memory of that being a part of the book. You know
When
what
I
I
think
mean?
that's a literary device, and I think that works much better
In
written
a
down.
book.
Like this guy told me the story, and now I'm telling you, or I found
I
this
told you.
letter or whatever. You know what I mean? It feels like very
Yeah.
passed down storytelling, very old storytelling device that again necessarily doesn't translate or feel as compelling here.
Mm,
Um, to me at least, but
yeah.
to the stuff in the filmmaking that we do like it's kind of what we already talked about like that I think GDT is he's reliable on every single time. The costumes are amazing. I mean,
Hmm.
the production design is like stellar like and a lot
Hmm.
of it practical. It didn't really feel like CGI backdrop like we always get nowadays. Like
Yeah.
it felt very like a set like they built like all handmade and crafted, and in
Yep.
the behind the scenes they show you that they actually did build all these sets and these costumes.
I love
And
it.
so it's incredible to see every time. I mean, some of my favorites, I mean, I love the creature's like fur coat, which he found in a graveyard, and just it continues to deteriorate throughout the movie. I love that.
Yes. It also
Uh,
seemed like it was growing sometimes too. And I was like, what's happening with this jacket? Like
mhm.
I guess that's exactly it is I found myself so much more interested in the production designer, in
Me
the
too. That's
costuming.
that's what I'm saying. That's what
And
it makes it. It sounds kind of I don't know, like hypocritical or whatever to be like everything was so beautiful and whatever. But sometimes that can also take the life out of something where you're just looking at these gorgeous sets, these gorgeous costumes, and you're like,
right.
okay, so I'm looking at all of this and not really soaking anything in, like meaningful in.
Yeah, again, I'm not necessarily also being given that thing where the visuals and the production design are a part of the storytelling, right?
Mm,
Like I think when we get to what our favorite shots are, the some of my favorite moments and my favorite shots didn't actually move the story forward. They just looked very cool. Right? Like they weren't necessarily an important shot
that's
to
the point. Okay, yeah, that's the point I
yeah,
was gonna make
translate
is that
something. They were just sort of like, "Oh, this is just a very beautiful shot." So I'll think of it when I think of this movie because I probably won't think of the other stuff in this movie.
that's the argument is that when everything looks beautiful the entire runtime, it kind of makes picking your favorite shot hard
Yeah.
because it's like you know, in a movie, you can pick what shot you want to be beautiful or stunning or draw the viewer's eye. And in this
You
one,
sure
like you
can.
said, where is the intention? Like, where is the intention to, I'm going to put this scene to be what I want people to think is the most important or everything. It just, every costume just seemed, and that's what I was saying of like, maybe you can overwork
Mm.
every department and every detail and not the basics. Like it's the foundation isn't sound that
Well, and
can be a
also when you're
disservice.
so close to it, like if
Hmm.
you yourself get too close to it, I think that also, you get wrapped up in a kind of detail that is like incredibly fulfilling to you because you're so close to the material, but like ends up getting lost to your viewer because you didn't connect that shot to the material.
It's like watching someone else play with their toys or watching someone else play in his toy house,
Yes,
and
yes.
he's having this whole dramatic play story play out in his
Hmm.
head, and I'm watching that. And it's like that's not necessarily interesting to me. I can tell it's interesting to Guillermo del Toro, you know,
Right.
like
And maybe like in today's, world, that is a kind of storytelling that younger folks maybe want.
oh,
Because,
it's working.
like,
It's
well,
all over social media. The edits are already there, you
yep,
know, like Jacob
yep.
Elordi is Bay, and you know, like this is
Oh,
so me.
Lordy.
All girls
Yes.
want is a leaf, you know, like
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
that's
And,
all
that's why
over.
the internet can be so fun. But
I
I guess
know.
that's part of what's confusing to me is it's sort of like, I'm not really sure who this movie is for, but I do love that, the people it's for do pick it up.
Hmm.
I just feel like to get back into the filmmaking and sort of an
Yeah.
area where Shani B's about being well lit and making sure she can
Hmm.
see everything. This is the one time where I was like, dog, it's way too bright. I
Mm.
am watching a video game. It looks way too clean. And even the beautiful ability to see the like little bit of mold on the soldier's jacket he first puts on, I'm like, even that needed to be a little bit darker,
Mm.
which
I
I'll
don't.
never ask for. You might
Yeah.
never hear me ask for again.
I was
And
wondering about
that's why
that
it
too.
was so
Did you watch it on
surprising.
Netflix or in the theater?
I saw it on Netflix. Yeah, I
So did
didn't. I
I. So
missed
I was
the
wondering because that is a famously not. I guess the Netflix problem is more that everything's too dark, but
usually. Okay.
there's another part where, especially for TV shows, the brightness is like way up there. You know, like I noticed. So I was wondering if that was like a Netflix thing or the way they
A
shot it
theater
or
thing.
choose to shot it. I mean, I did like some of the shots where the light was coming in from the windows and things like
Right.
that. It definitely felt like very period accurate and stuff like that to me.
It just
Um,
felt like too whimsical rather than grim, and I needed like
mhm.
a little bit more grim in
Well, and
there.
that's the thing. That's what I'm. I guess I agree with that too. That for a gothic horror film, this was more gothic than any horror. Like,
Mm.
and horror doesn't necessarily mean more dead bodies. Although I could always use more of that. But
And there
it
was
could
a
also
lot of
just
blood
mean.
and stuff. It's like he had horror elements, but they
But it
just
could just be a
didn't.
mood too. Like I didn't
Yeah.
really get enough of a mood. Like you said, and the mood was more whimsical. I agree with
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, like the
Um,
music and everything. And I'm out here for the score as well, which I
mhm.
liked.
Me
But it
too.
was interesting to me that it's sort of like, in a way, he is still making these stories like with a kind of childlike space to hopefully maybe introduce younger viewers to stuff like this. But that like ultimately, as the buff that I am, makes me be like, oh, this one wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Even yeah, I guess like it's that property thing, but then also sort of like um I'm not super into the fantastical pieces, like I'm cool without the leaf. Like I'm the one girl
Mm.
that's like, "Mm, that's great," but like this is like a dude who has like poor communication skills. He's like trying his best or whatever, but like you would just control him, right? Like I think that's the one situation here that no one talks about is that like everyone would be in a position of power with the creature,
And he found the
even Mia
one girl
Goth's
in this
character.
universe that's not that
I
doesn't want
mean,
that.
like maybe, but even Mia Goth, like, sort of is. I feel like the reason she and Victor sometimes are connecting, Elizabeth, is because they both sort of think the way they see things is like how it really is. Hers is much more like righteous, being like, it's by God's design, like
Yeah.
it's more righteous. But I feel like that is part of what is wrong with almost all the humans, maybe except for his brother, who's like, I'm
Hmm.
just straight up afraid of you, which is
Yeah.
right. He should be. But I feel like
You are
when
the
you
creature,
fall in love
Victor.
with the creature,
That
you're
line
falling in
was
love with the power of the one-sided, like, this creature would do anything and everything for me.
Yeah.
What are you going to do for the creature?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's maybe people are just starved for color, and so
Mm,
that's why it's gotten blown up on social media. Because I mean, there are a lot of cool. I like the red that's popping up throughout. Like it starts
mm.
from his mother at the beginning, and then you see like his gloves or
Yeah, the blood is
um
very red, red blood
the
too.
scarves, his blanket, all these like little things. I loved all of Mia Goth's dresses. That
They were
like
so wild.
that blue feather like crown thing that she had around her head was
Yes.
cool. Her like X-ray blue dress, and then she had the red umbrella pop and stuff like
Yep.
that. The
Yep.
mustard yellow dress, the green swirly like moth design dress. Like again, watch the behind the scenes because they go into this. As far as the production design, I love the ship. They actually built that ship. It took them like 6 months or something crazy. It was ridiculous, but like
Of course
so
it
much
did.
props for that. The mansion at the beginning, the battlefield with all the corpses I loved,
Mm-hmm.
Frankenstein's tower, and we could just go on and on. It's just all that stuff is cool. What did you think of Frankenstein's like actual creature design? Because that's like a kind of a new take on it too, I
Yeah.
guess.
I mean, I don't want to step too much on sort of like where my questions are with kind of what we're saying, what we're
Hmm.
doing with that and saying about that. But I do really love the detail of how across time the monster looked more and more human.
Hmm.
Like started really in this like very blue place that kind of looked much more alien-like. And
Yeah.
then like as time went on, it was like there was some color emerging, which I was like,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it. Um, but I do feel like, the design was interesting because it was sort of like alluding to
It's very
maybe
minimal.
how like super hot Elordi kind of is. It's sort of like if the dude under
Yeah.
this makeup is like very good looking. So
Yeah.
trying
We
to
don't want
make
to
him look
ugly him up
monstrous
too
is like
much.
right, it's kind of
Yeah.
like losing the effect of, what I think he is doing, which is sort of again humanizing that like don't judge a book by its cover. Like the most wonderful man is
Yeah.
underneath all of this. So it was okay for me. I didn't love that it was like sort of blue though, rather than like
It was a weird color.
more
Yeah, it was.
more purpley. Like bruisey, purpley, dead body vibes is what I was maybe thinking. But everything was very blue. All the
Yeah,
corpses.
a lot of pictures have been popping up of like, that music video, like the somebody I used to know with like all the makeup lines and stuff like that. People are saying you look like that, which is, I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
it is very much that. So, I mean, it's okay. Like I said, you can't make another flat top green guy, anymore. So I
Nope.
understand the take on it. But there is some of that too, like you're saying, of like this is a teen star right now, kind of teeny bopper star that we need to we can't uglify him too much. So
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about the actors a little bit more specifically because I do, feel like this is an interesting one for that. So before we slide through, I got to know like what is the shot that you
yeah,
really stick with? Like
see,
what
it's
is the
like
one that's gonna stay?
it's hard. Like I said, there's so many in this movie where it's like, yeah, gorgeously composed and shot like the whole thing. I mean, I really like, I guess, the shot of him finding the skull in the forest, which was the same thing that Elizabeth, when we meet her, she's doing the same thing. I like the
Mm-hmm.
frozen horse in the battlefield with the icicles hanging off of it. That was
Very
cool.
cool. Cute.
Mia Goth dying at the end, Elizabeth dying at the end, and him over her body with the snow. The crucifixion pose with the creature like
Of
finally
course.
being created across from a Medusa, giant Medusa head. Again, very subtle
But
imagery in
purposeful.
GDT. Uh, and I guess then in the final shot, Frankenstein walking off into the sunset as well.
Mm.
Those were some shots I like. I couldn't choose one. This was really hard. What about you? What was your favorite?
The ones that stick out to me the most, I think my favorite shot is when the monster comes back to the lab and discovers the burned photograph. And when he sort of lifts it to take a look at the image, it completes his face because like the image is burned through. And so I really liked that because it's sort of like he is coming back to this place where he will find the rest of himself, this time the rest of himself mentally, because, he's not going on a
I
journey
like
to find
the
out the
idea
people of
behind
these
that
parts.
shot, but I wanted more from that. I don't know. Like I wanted to maybe see his face through it, or like it was just
I mean,
maybe
you
the
you get
angle
a
they shot it
soft
from.
one, but
It
that's
was just
exactly
I
right.
wanted
Is
more
it?
from that shot because I wanted to like that shot more too because I like the idea, the concept behind it. But yeah, let's
Yeah,
get
yeah.
into the acting like choices and things like that in our next segment called character choices.
This is where we'll take a look at all of the thespians and straight actors that play pretend with their minds and bodies for us movie buffs. This film stars Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, and Christoph Waltz. Charles Dance is there being terrifying as well. What do you think? Like what is your verdict in terms of how everybody handled their characters here?
I think everybody did a serviceable job, like we said, but I guess it's more in the writing. I just don't think they had enough meat on the bone there to really do anything except for Elordi. Like I think he
Mm,
took his assignment of the creature and really ran with that. Like you can tell just
yeah,
the very subtle movements from when he's like first born, like as a baby, and kind of like trying to feel where things are out, and then getting a little more comfortable as he's like going out into the world, and then when he's finally attacking Victor and in full like beast mode, like revenge mode, like there's a progression there through the visuals and through his performance that I think helped maybe
yeah,
compared to the other characters that really don't have that leeway, I guess, in the writing.
totally.
um what about you?
I mean, I feel like this is a weird one because I feel like Elordi maybe gets the most space to try to do something in earnest, but I feel like Oscar Isaac is really stuck with something so one-dimensional, but like going so hard that I feel like, he had to work too hard in this one when he could have maybe like been the more muted
When I
creator like
think
we
because there wasn't enough writing, he was kind of trying to overcompensate maybe in some of, and
yes,
there's some line
yes.
deliveries that I was laughing at, like when
His
we
British accent, not so great.
yeah, that's a given, I guess, in all these type of big budget movies. But like I was cracking up when Christoph Waltz finally unveils his grand plan, which we'll talk about later. It's not the best plan, and he just looks, and there's a close up of the camera, and he just goes, "No." And so he's making these like grand gestures, these grand choices, and like you said, trying to do a lot with the
The
half of the
little he's
story that he's
working with.
giving. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, especially with Mia Goth's character, that was the same issue I had, where like
Same.
we've seen her be so great in so many different things that it's kind of unfair, that like we're holding her maybe to that standard, but like she really didn't have nothing to do here.
She
Like it
had
was,
pretty much nothing to do. I also feel like low key, there wasn't a lot of chemistry between these actors. Like they're
well,
all
and
fantastic actors,
her and
but
Oscar Isaac, right? Like they were to be a believable, like a fair type story. I never got the fact
not
that
for a
she
second.
was into him at all ever. And like
No.
again, that was a choice in the storytelling. But then like why should I care then? She's not
Yeah.
into him. Unless you're trying to make Victor seem more pathetic, but we kind of already had that in the bag from the beginning. You know what I mean?
Right.
We
We've
didn't need
done that
another
work.
reason to hate this guy. Like,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I feel like she, even with Elordi, I feel like I could see her kind of like working it up. It wasn't like in
hmm
there the way that, when she works with other people and has like real chemistry we have seen be able to kind of come through. So I just was like, this one is weird because I do agree everyone kind of understood their assignment. But I feel like strangely, Christoph Waltz was the only one that was like, and I'm just gonna show up, right? I'm not gonna go overboard, not gonna go underboard. I'm gonna just show up and I'm gonna do my best here. And I
hmm
really feel like even though like, he is not going to be the actor that like this one that people are like, did you see Christoph Waltz's Frankenstein? I do feel like when I think back, I'll probably be like, Christoph Waltz's was so good in that.
That's hilarious. I mean, I did like some of the scene where he's like pissing in the stall in the urinal, and then Oscar Isaac's like, "I'll give you some privacy," and he's like, "No, no, no need. Uh,
Yeah. Hmm.
can you flush that for me, by the way? Like when I leave." Also,
Yeah,
I
you
just want
got
to
me.
shout out Charles Dance for always being a reliable piece of shit dad in
Total
anything.
monster. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Always, every time.
So there's the original generational trauma piece, but yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, I was thinking a lot. We did Ex Machina as well, which is another creation story of a sort, with Oscar Isaac playing the evil scientist in that as well,
Right?
but more of a bro billionaire guy that's more current.
Something more grounded, which was maybe easier to do there.
Well, and the subtleties and the nuances of that performance, where you're not sure whether to trust this guy, what made it so good to us in that review. Like we were both like just in awe of, like his performance, and that was because of the writing too, where you're
Yeah,
like, he's an asshole, that much is true, but like maybe
it's
some
written
of
very
what he's
well.
saying is right, and we never really have any of that nuance here. It's always just like this guy sucks. Like
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I guess like, whose movie does this get to be then, right? Like in the future when you think
Yeah,
back or when like the public looks back, like who's the one that's going to be most remembered for their role here?
this was not hard like the shot category. This is like when Giannis has a 40-point game on the Milwaukee Bucks,
Hmm.
and the team is there, but they're mostly just like, I'm gonna get the rebound and pass it to Giannis because he's on a heater right now. And so that was Elordi in this movie. That was
Yeah.
like, clear the ball out as soon as the creature gets it's his story. It immediately got better for me, and like
Yeah.
the second half is way more interesting, I think, than
I
the
totally
first
agree.
half. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
um
Yeah. I feel like he is doing his best to sort of like fight against that, pretty people tax that he's paying being such an attractive tall man. But I feel like he really wants to do the work and put himself out there and was like really brave in his portrayal here. So even though like this movie for me is not like a returnable performance, it's just like another reminder that like Jacob Elordi's a really good actor.
he
Like
is.
he is a really
Yeah.
good actor.
You know what's crazy too is, you know who was originally supposed to play that, right, and dropped out before?
Mm-mm.
And Andrew Garfield was supposed to play the creature, dropped out 6 weeks before. Would have been another handsome guy trying to creaturefy himself, but
Of course
I
he
think they
was
lucked
trying to
out
be in this
so
though.
hard with
Yeah.
Elordi because
Yeah.
how tall he is combined with like the contrast of like how sweet he is and much of a
He's like,
child was
yeah.
just like, again, very easy to read and compelling,
I
like that
love
was more than
Garfield,
anything
but
else. So
not for him. Yeah. Not for him. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. That takes us to our next segment called Missed Takes.
in this segment, we spotlight the elements that didn't quite land and decide whether they're slight snags or full on creative fails.
We kind of talked about mine already.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why Victor hates the monster so much, like immediately, other than he's like written so one-dimensional to just be like a total butthead. But that one I just like didn't understand. And I think like my biggest takeaway is sort of like, why can't the monster die? Like, why does the monster always heal? Um, where did that come from?
Can I tell you my theory? And again, this is a sign of bad writing that we've run into before in action movies, where I'm doing my own hypothesizing when you should tell me what it is.
Thank you.
Uh, I think when Victor has the fight with Christoph Waltz's character and that one metal rod breaks and kind of bends, I was wondering if that, I'm like, so that it just worked, or maybe that is why it worked, but like slightly off. You know what I mean? Like not how it was supposed to. That was
Yeah.
my guess, but again, we never get any evidence. So
No, the like regeneration part is why I was like, but we're talking so much about science and like all these different systems and all this other stuff, but we like don't have. He's not trying to make eternal life, but he sort of is, which is really kind of a strange thing because we never really turn around on that either. So yeah, I just feel like for me, the biggest hole is the writing and
well, and the
um,
science part too was, I'll add on that it wasn't compelling because it's like, I don't know what science is in this world. I guess like where how advanced they are, because and that wasn't helped when he brings someone back to life in front of a boardroom of people, and none of them, all of them are just
they're all like,
mad. That's their only reaction. It's like, dude,
yeah,
if we saw that today, people would be fucking freaking out. Like,
yeah, I'd be very
some of the people
excited.
would be like, well, it could be AI, I guess, but like at the same, we're talking about in the 1800s here, like the 1850s or whatever it is, like people would be losing their minds. And they're just like, "You heathen! This is ungodly, sir!" Like, it's
It's
just
true.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like all the paint by number stuff is really like why ultimately this doesn't like fully work for me.
yeah.
Um, which, is a perfect segue to our final segment,
Oh, I
cue the
got I got a
score.
couple more. I got a couple
Oh, a
more.
couple
Sorry,
more. My
real
bad.
quick,
Please,
real
please
quick.
bring them to me. Bring them to me. Give them to me.
um, I'm kind of done with Mia Goth playing dual roles. I
Yeah.
think we
Oh,
should
oh
just
my
put
gosh. I
that in
can't
the
believe I forgot
garbage
about that.
because that was
Holy
really
shit.
distracting early on, and we didn't need.
So
Again, Guillermo del
bad.
Toro likes to spell out things way more than they need to, and so I could have gotten he has, an attachment to his
Mommy issues
mom
here. Mm-hmm.
and daddy
Mm-hmm.
issues without her actually playing them. It was distracting. I'm sorry. It was like,
Is it in her contract? I
I don't get it. So it worked kind
can't
of
believe I
good
forgot
in
about that.
X, but I don't know. I'm just done with it. yeah, we Victor gives like the creature like a couple weeks to learn anything, and it's like, bro, like maybe he's like a kid takes how long to like learn to talk and walk and do all these things, and you just
And you're like,
expect him on
excuse me,
day
it's been
one.
2 weeks. Right,
Like,
right.
bro, you need to play college football. I want to get rich. Like,
Yes, yes. Seriously, seriously. And no like
so
real reconciling with any of that, like no real acknowledgement that
so
like even though we're seeding that area, not really growing anything.
So he was just mad. And again, I know you want to hit that beat that it's generational trauma. He's making the same mistakes his dad did, but you could have, again, nuance works a lot better for me at this stage of my life, at this
Yeah.
stage in our movie watching fandom
Hmm.
than anything spelled out like that. And then, yeah, we already talked about the creature, I guess, like him being, very empathetic, super fast, and not, we don't really see any creature side of him. And that was kind of what you're talking about with it was giving me little Twilight vibes, like dangerously close, and like the fan reaction and people on social media like reacting to him in the way that they have been feels very much like
It's the
that. That
same.
like,
Yeah.
I can save him. He just wanted a hug and he wanted a companion and things like that. And I'm like, I don't think, that
No.
was the main takeaway that you were supposed to take. Like, he
These are
should
the
not be
ladies
your
that like
boyfriend.
marry the dudes in jail. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? They're like, we didn't mean it. It's like, yes, maybe
Yeah.
not, but that we can't hang on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it didn't
No,
help that Victor did all the killing and just blamed it. Again, like that might have helped a little bit if we saw him ever make a creature mistake than
exactly,
what we got.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, ever be a little bit more actually human and not just sort of like this perfect human creation.
yeah, that's it.
All right, cool, cool, cool. That brings us to our last segment. Cue the score.
And finally, this is where we rate the film out of 5 skulls. Is that cool with
Ooh.
you? Five,
Yeah, skulls, let's
five
go.
skulls found at a gravesite. Um,
Okay.
I
What do
will
you give
give
it?
it. This was a tough one because again, I like GDT and I like this. I can't remember what I gave Pinocchio, but I like this slightly more than Pinocchio. I might have given Pinocchio like a 2.5 or something like that.
Okay.
Um, I think I'll give this one 3 skulls.
Three
What about
skulls,
you?
three skulls. I think I'm like in the same area where I think I'm going to give it a 2.5, like
Hmm.
2 points for the amazing production design, the amazing, acting and all of that jazz, but like only a point 0.5 for like really doing much more than that.
Hmm.
I want to give it a 3, but I think I'm going to be a little bit harder of a grader this time
Yeah.
around because I seem to be giving everybody high marks when we were in the action space. And so maybe I'll try to be a little more critical this time around.
That's all right. All right. I think that wraps it up for us. Let's remind the people where they can find us.
Get your fix and follow the show at We Stay Buff on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Threads and TikTok. And you can follow me on all the socials at It's Me, Shani B.
So you never miss a rep. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please leave a positive review. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Follow me on all the socials at misfit_minded and my website, misfitminded.com.
We'll be back in 2 weeks covering Mr. Scorsese, The Doc, which is going to be a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time on another edition of Movie Buffs. Until then.
Slay, literally.